So fractional exponents. So you guys remember if I have, oops, hold on a second. Point F3 for fractional exponents. Now, before I talk about fractional exponents, you guys remember the rule for a to the m times a to the n power? Yes, sir.
You multiply the exponents.
Do we multiply exponents?
Sorry,
no.
you don't multiply.
Sabrina, you add is correct. Very
That's
good.
what I meant.
Good. So if I have something like, for example, 2 to the 4th times 2 to the 6th, you should all know how to do this. Jetty, what's the answer for this? We get 2 to the 10th. Yeah, you don't multiply, you add. You guys remember this? So I want you to kind of keep that in mind as we talk about fractional exponents, okay? So, may I go into example 2? Okay. So if I have this, and I say find n, and I give you 2 to the nth times 2 to the nth equals to 2 to the 1st. As you can see, it's kind of it's kind of doing the opposite thing. Before I give you the exponents, right, you were able to tell me, you were able to simplify, and that 2 to the 10th. Now, I'm telling you, if I multiply these two things, I get 2 to the 1st power. What is the value of n? Think about this. Everybody try. Go ahead. I'll give you time. Oh, you guys already figured it out. Okay, go ahead. No, so you guys are correct. It is half. Okay, n is half because you guys figured that out. Figure that out. You say, okay, 2 to the, isn't 2 to the half, 2 to the half, isn't that, you know, what's half plus half? 1. Isn't that what you get? So you're right. Now, does anybody know how to get this answer algebraically and using the rules that we learned? Yeah? Sasha, what did you do?
I did n plus n equals 1.
Exactly. It has to be, so very good. So you know that 2 to the n times 2 to the n is 2 to the n plus n, which is 2 to the 2n, right? And Sasha says, wait a minute, if 2 to the 2n has equals to 1, right? So if the left side is equal to the right side, in order for that to be true, 2n has to equal to 1, right? So you just solve for n. So I kind of did it on the side, right? 2n equals to 1, you divide both sides by 2, n has to be half, right? So, right, you could verify that, you know, that's how you do it algebraically. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Oh.
So, now, this is kind of interesting. Do you think, so we're not really sure the value of 2, we haven't really seen anything with exponent that is fraction, right? Fraction exponent. Now, do you think though 2 to the 1/2 times 2 to the 1/2, do you think these two numbers are same numbers? The two of them aren't they same numbers, right?
Yeah.
They look the same, right? They must be same number. So what does this really mean? You multiplying 2 to the half times 2 to the half becomes 2. Do you know such number where you multiply the same number twice and it equals to 2? We have seen this before. 1, 2, 3, 4 people see it? Okay, Jeffrey, what do you think?
1 times 1.
1 times 1 is not 2.
What?
So I'm saying, what same numbers can you multiply twice, Jeffrey, and make it equal to 2? 1 doesn't work. Kevin? Rad 2 times? Rad 2. So guess what? What do you think this means? Yeah.
That 2 to the square root of 1 over 2 is irrational.
It is a rational number. And what does 2 to the 1 over 2 really mean? It means it's the same as rad 2. That's what it means. So that's what I'm trying to get at. Because these two numbers must be same, right? Because something times something gives you 2, right? If you multiply the same thing, right, twice, it gives you 2. So this 2 to the half power, it really means square root of 2. That's all it means, okay? Does that make sense, guys? Yeah. So really, another way of writing square root of 2 is 2 to the half power. Does that make sense? It's the square root of 2, it means 2 to the half power, right? As you just saw. By the way, there's a, you know how like you have a number like, you know sometimes we don't really write 2 as 2 over 1, things like that. People get tired of writing 2 over 1, they just write 2, right? 3, they just write, isn't this really 3 over 1, but isn't that really 3? So this one also, people got tired of writing, this is really, the correct way of writing this is this. This is a little number in front of the square root. You have to have actually 2 there. But people got tired of writing this every time. They just now do not write that little 2. Does that make sense? Where do you think that 2 came from? Yeah, it came from the denominator of the fractional exponent. You see what I mean? That's where it came from. But people got tired of writing that 2 every time. So, and what do we call this? How do we read this? Can somebody read this one here? How do we read this? Yeah. No, isn't this square root of 2? So that's why it's, right, square root, that's where that square comes from. It's square root. You understand? Right, that 2 is supposed to be there, but people got tired of writing it every time, so they just got rid of it. Just like, you could write 3 as 3 over 1, but they don't write 3 over 1, do they? They just write 3. Things like that. Okay? Like 2 plus 2 minus 3. Isn't that really 2 plus negative 3? Like addition. Subtraction is really addition. It's kind of like that. People got rid of it. So kind of keep that in mind. Does that make sense? So don't get confused if you see that little 2 in front of it. Okay? It just means square root of 2. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, go ahead and try then example 3. Now this is kind of similar to what we just did. Instead of, 3 factors, instead of 2 factors, I have 3. 2 to the m, 2 to the m, 2 to the m equals 2 to the first. Okay? How many people think they know what the value of m must be? Brian? 1/3 is correct. And as you can see that, when you add m plus m plus m, isn't that 3m? Right? So you know that 3m must equal to 1 because left side has equals to the right side. That 3m must equal to 1, so m has to be 1/3. And you could verify that, 2/3 times 2/3 times, 2 to the 1/3, 2 to the 1/3, 2 to the 1/3. Right? You get 2 to the first, right? Any question? Does that make sense? So as you can see, I can verify. It checks, right? 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. Isn't that 2 to the first? Okay, it checks. Any question? So let's kind of think about this now. What do you think then 2 to the 1/3 really mean? We know that 2 to the 1/2 was what? Square root of 2, right? Does anybody have any guess in terms of? Because you don't have to
You
always.
already gave us the answer. 3 red 2.
What?
You wrote 3.
Oh, whoop.
Yes. Second.
Okay, so guess what this means? 2 to the 1/3 means, you're right? Yeah, it's not square root anymore. It's called cubic root. You're exactly right. It's called cubic root of 2. That's how you read it. So don't think that we always have to have 1/2 as the fraction. Okay, it could be 1/3. Do you think it could be 1/4? Yeah, could it be 1/5? It could keep going. Exactly right. So that's what Sasha was asking, right? Right. That's what it means, right? So what is cubic root? We just talked about square root. What does cubic root mean? Look what we found. If you go back here, you see we found m to be 1/3, right? What does cubic root? What does it really mean? Yeah.
It's like,
You're right. I want you to be thinking about what are we really finding? What is the value of these fractional exponent? What do they really mean? Okay, we're gonna get there in a minute. Okay, so just kind of hold on to that. But so if I could have cubic root, do you think I could have 4th root? Like we said, we could have 4th root. It'll be right, 4th root. That's how we just call it. What do you think if I have 5? What do you think that's called? 5th root. Exactly right. And then what if I have n? It'll be nth root. Okay, nth root. Does that make sense? So don't think that you could only have square root, cubic root. You could keep going. 4th root, 5th root, 6th root.
So many possibilities.
Yes, there are many ways. So let me just write the whole thing here. By the way, does the base have to be 2 every time? The radicand, does the radicand have to be 2?
No.
If you're talking about in terms of exponents base, but no, the radicand or the base doesn't have to be 2 every time. It could be any, it could be any number. So if I have nth root of a, it really means what? A to the 1 over nth power. Isn't that right, guys? By the way, there's a name for this little number. Okay, n. You see this little number n? Yeah, it's called root index.
Just kidding.
So yeah, so I don't want to talk about this is how we call that number. So I want to refer to this number as root index. Okay, so that's called root index. Okay, so go ahead and now.